I've got a full battery.
Let's get it. Wearing sunglasses. We've got a full tank of petrol. Name that film.
Is there a film about
Blue Brothers. It's not a podcast. We're Blue Brothers. We've got a full tank of petrol. We're wearing sunglasses. Let's hit it.
Let's hit it. Hello and welcome to The Great Indoors,
the podcast which reveals everything you ever needed to know about interiors and explains how to make it all really work for you in your home.
I'm Sophie Robinson.
And I'm Kate Watson-Smythe.
And in today's episode, we are going to take you to the next stage of our Back to Basics miniseries and take a deep dive into all the elements that you need to plan before you even think about picking up a paintbrush. It's the 5 Ps, as I like to call it. Perfect planning prevents poor performance.
I think you had an extra P swear word in there. Taking it out, but the censors. Anyway,
it is the 6.
I'm going to say, you and your fancy alliteration, I see your fancy 5 Ps might be 6, and I'm going to give you the 5 F. Oh, floor plan, flow, fitting, furniture. That's not it. We're going to do this again. I can't even remember my own rules. I'm losing with excitement that we're in the same room. I don't know where to look. I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to talk to you face to face. I only ever talk to you through the screen. Anyhow, I'm going to do this again. The 5 Fs. Forget about her 5 Ps. We are talking floor plan, flow, fittings, flooring and feel.
Very good. Very, very good. So where are we going to start?
Well, I don't know a minute now. I haven't done the Wordle. All this talk reminded me.
You're still doing the Wordle?
Yeah.
Oh, what, every day?
Yeah. I got up to an 87-day streak. Then I broke it. Furious.
Oh, no. Well, no one will be surprised that I probably did the Wordle once or twice and thought, well, I can't be doing this. And that was the end of that. So anyway, let's bring us back into the room. And, well, what a nice room to be in. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, yes, that is right. We are now a multi-platform podcast. Here we are sat in, or what are we calling this room, Kate?
Well, it's called many, many things. I mean, we mostly call it the green room because
it's green.
It's green. My son calls it the treehouse because it's on the top floor and it overlooks the valley and you can see the trees.
And you have this tree top wallpaper.
We have the treetop wallpaper.
Very pattern, Kate. I mean, steady.
Yeah. No, there's quite a lot of pattern in this house, actually.
Well, as you may have guessed, if you follow Kate, if you listened to the podcast before, you'll know Kate has renovated this beautiful house in Turin in the northern part of Italy. And I finally got it together to come visit. So we've just spent a lovely 3 days together. I've been shown around the city. I've eaten myself stupid because the food here is just insane. I've really enjoyed your beautiful hospitality. And before I fly home this evening, we thought we'd squeeze in a cheeky podcast.
We did, yes, because we thought we were together. We've basically got all the equipment. I mean, what you can't tell, hopefully, because of our brilliant staging, is that there are piles of CDs and Venetian paperweights propping things up.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of sellotape. That hopefully it's all there and it's going to work.
And we've been left to our own devices to get all the tech working.
Yeah. So, there may actually be nothing.
On that note, numbers are still going out, Kate. Numbers are still going out.
Oh, multi-platform such pro. Sorry, just check something. We're on. Back in the room, as I was saying, in the room. And we're going to start with, what have we told everybody we're even talking about
this
week?
It's planning. Before they pick up a paintbrush, they are planning. So we're going to not really get into any of the pretty decorative stuff. This is planning your room plans, your layouts, your electrical planning, your sockets. We might talk a bit about flow and cohesion because that is something I get asked a lot. And actually, I think it's really fitting that we are sat here in your house in Turin because it is an absolute masterstroke of perfect planning, Kate, if I do say so myself.
Well, and an element of luck to that, of course, because, we were constrained by budget, which is for a future episode. But the thing I think we wanted to start with, and this is whether it's a whole house or a single room, is about the flow of the room or the flow of the room. So it's individual. And what you've got to start with, which is really key, is are your rooms in the right place? Because I think we're so often led by the estate agent who goes, oh, here's 3 bedrooms. So this will be, your spare bedroom. This is the smallest bedroom. This will be the office. And obviously this is the kitchen. And we go, oh, okay, that's the kitchen. Don't really like it. Maybe I'll extend it. And it's about thinking, actually, for the way I live or we live in here, is the kitchen where I want it? You know, in classic Victorian terraces, the kitchen, before people start mucking about with them, is a small room at the back overlooking the garden so that you could see the garden while you were doing the washing up. Well, a lot of us have dishwashers. We don't need to see that. And what we're now finding is that you actually might want a table and chairs at the back of the house near the garden to look at the garden. So your dining room, and you can do your washing up towards the back of the room where it's darker, or your food prep. So
don't you know another really interesting thing about Victorian houses is, yes, the kitchen was always at the back, and that was also to allow the front room to be at the front of the house, yes. Because traditionally you'd invite your guests in and they'd only ever see the front room. No one got to see the kitchen.
Yeah.
And your front room was where you'd have your lovely dresser and display all the best china, and you'd have the best furniture, and that was that. It's so interesting how we've changed the way we live. That was the room in which we showed the best side of ourselves, and the kitchen, scullery and everything that's the back, and nobody ever went there. And now our modern way of entertaining is it all happens in the kitchen, right?
And then this leads, I think, to another problem which you really need to think about, is that the stock reaction now is to come in and go, right, I need to extend in a Victorian house into the side return, or I need to push the kitchen back. You know, I must have a kitchen big enough, which is for dining, for a sofa, for a TV. And then that front room becomes abandoned, and you've spent money extending in a different direction, and you're left with a room which is probably a bit darker at the front of the house that you're not using. So I've seen houses now, you're beginning to see people perhaps putting their kitchen in that front part of the house because it's perhaps less public or it's more businesslike. And then the back of the house becomes opened up to be a lovely sitting dining. So unique space. And I have talked quite a lot about, in a Victorian house again, or terraced houses, you know, there's the back half of the sitting room is often a dark windowless space. That can be a great space for the kitchen. You light it while you do your prep there. It hides the washing up. And then you still have your front sitting room for perhaps TV, or a TV snug room, or early evening.
Well, that's what you've done in your London house, isn't it?
And a big open kitchen at the back. So and obviously everybody's floor plans all over the world will be different, but it's just...
Well, let's talk about my house, because I don't have a traditional Victorian terrace, which I know is a lot of people here in the UK live in that type of property, and I'm sure it's sort of repeated in various versions throughout Europe. But I actually have a detached house in the country. It's like a lot of British country houses, a bit of a hodgepodge. It started off as a couple of farm workers' cottages that got knocked through together, and then in the 80s somebody bought the cottages, smushed them together and built a big...
They made a bit of a mess.
Built a big extension. But what was interesting, again, this is how taste and style change. In the 80s, it was still seen that you needed this big, impressive living room.
Yeah.
And the kitchen, not so much. So my house had a tiny kitchen overlooking the parked cars.
It was dark.
It was north facing. It was dark. It was really relatively probably the smallest room on the ground floor, actually. Then it had a large formal dining room and a separate room next door. And then this enormous living room, which was glorious because it was at the south end, which had access to the garden. But the way we lived, it meant the whole time everyone was squished in this tiny dark kitchen. And every time we entertained in the summer, which is what you do when you live in the country, we had this long walk from the kitchen to the garden. And it's interesting, Kate, because you picked on that fact that everybody just defaults to thinking they need an extension. I feel here in the UK, we're obsessed with extensions, loft conversions of extensions, just popping out more space. But I think the key that I've learned with my house is to check yourself. Do I need more space, or do I need it differently? And being married to a builder, we were very quick to get planning permission, build plans. But then when we did the costings that our kitchen extension was going to be over 150,000, we had to think again.
Well, and we had that with the London house, and you know, so old listeners from a while ago will be, you know, familiar with this. We had a slightly, I'm going to say, shonky extension on the back of the kitchen. You know, I mean, it does not quite wobbling, but you know. And so the estate agent assumed that we would knock that down and build into the side return to make the kitchen squarer and wider. And we were like, I'm not going to spend 100 grand, you know, minimum in London now, to have the same amount of floor space in a different place. So let's see if we can work around that. So we rebranded the utility room into a pantry.
Oh,
That sounds better.
that's
So
it.
it had a shower room in it. We kept the shower room and we, changed the utility room. We re-kitted it out with open shelves and a nice worktop and a little sink. So it's a sort of wet bar pantry. It's got the washing machine in it. So it's very much about thinking, for all of you, is this space where I want it? Not just where the original builders 100 years ago, or even the very recent builders who are all, architects driven by the purity of the line, don't necessarily live like I do. And, you are allowed to move rooms around. And, another note on flow, a couple of houses ago, we did what I think many people do. We had our bedroom. We were up in the attic under the eaves, and we put the boys in what's, the principal big bedroom, because they, at that time, they shared a room. They had the big toys, the big bunk bed. It made sense that we would have a slightly smaller room. And they were on the same level then as the single bathroom we had. And so next to our bedroom was another tiny eaves room, with shelves in it, and we thought, this will be a lovely study. Lovely, it will. So we made it up as my study. We put all the stuff in there. I mean, I couldn't bear working in there. It was dark. It was cold. It was miles from the rest of the house. And there were eaves at these sloping shelves either side of the ceiling, either side of my desk. And, I kid you not, I stood up once in a hurry. I smacked my head. This is interesting. Literally seeing stars. I thought it was a cartoon thing. I saw these stars going around in a circle. I didn't have cheaping birds.
You didn't have
I think they've made that up. SweetiePies.com. But the stars was an actual thing. And then I realised from that point on that actually I spent all day working at the kitchen table because it was lighter, it was more comfortable. I had more space. The ceiling was a bit higher near the fridge. Of course, that then brings its own set of issues because, the kids would come home from school and I'd be still in there making their tea and serving them dinner. And then, my husband would come home from work and he'd be like, should we lay the table for dinner? And I've got to get out of this room. We're going to have dinner or lamps in front of the TV. That's a whole different saga. But the point being, that room, had we had more budget or thought it through, would have been better off actually as an ensuite bathroom for that bedroom. Now, obviously, budget doesn't always permit, but it's the same principle. Think about how you live and are the rooms where you want them.
I think that notion of working from home is a really good one to have because more people are doing it now. Lots of people, obviously COVID just, threw it all up. Lots of people I speak to who are working for companies still aren't doing a 5-day week. They're either doing a 3 or a 4-day week and either 1 or 2 days.
My son's girlfriend's 26, never done a 5-day week.
In an office.
Yeah. She works, she has a full-time job, but it's 3 days in the office, 2 at home.
So actually, it does throw up the thing of like, what do we need our home office to look like? And I think the knee-jerk has always been, we'll just use the tiny box room.
Yeah.
But actually, if that's the space you're using the most...
for several hours a day.
You're actually spending the most hours in that room and maybe just a couple of hours in the sitting room watching TV and probably even less time sleeping in the bedroom. I think sometimes it's like, okay, don't use the tiny box room. Maybe take the bigger guest bedroom.
Or if it's a guest room, and I've seen this time and time again, it's absolutely fine to work in the guest room because, you want to use your rooms, all your rooms as much as you can. But then if it's a guest room, which is not used very often as a guest bedroom, don't have a big double bed that takes up all the space and squeeze yourself into a tiny desk. Get a sofa bed. You can get some good ones now. You get what you pay for, but you can get ones which are comfortably sprung with proper mattresses. You can work out your own budget on that. But a sofa bed will allow you to have a desk, space for a desk to work, and also you can use it as a day bed, a little inspiration.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've had a lot of complaints about sofa beds from people who've had to sleep on them in the past. And also a sofa bed will still take up quite a lot of room because it's got arms and it's got back cushions, and you maybe don't need a sofa in a spare bedroom. These trundle beds, there's not loads of them online because I've tried to find one for my guest bedroom and I did have to do a bit of a deep dive.
They're common for children because they're a bit smaller. Truckle bed.
Yeah, a truckle bed. So it's basically looks like a single bed, but inside where the divan would be is another mattress that pulls out and then pops up on little legs.
Yeah.
So you can either have it as a twin or you can zip the mattress and make a king size. But the point is they are real bed mattresses rather than those skinny sofa bed mattresses. Conran do one for an eye-watering £1,700. But you can get cheaper on some of these like generic bed websites.
But you do get what you pay for. So, £1,700 might feel like a huge investment. But if it's, for example, for your parents who might need a bit more comfort and often a bit more height, then, and if they come 2 or 3 times a year, it can be worth the investment. Well, if this is for your drunken mate who's crashed in there after the pub and you need them to leave the next morning, don't spend a fortune. Not got them up and out. But that's a whole different. That's a whole different.
So what we're kind of saying when it comes to planning your space is, I think the headline is question: do you need more space, or do you need to reassess the space you've got? The next part of this, I have to say, is do you need all the stuff? It can be a really good time to evaluate the amount of stuff you're trying to cram into a house, because again, research has shown that quite often people don't need more space, they need a feeling of space. And a feeling of space can come from having a well-organised space.
Yeah.
So well-organised storage. I'm a really big advocate for trying to carve out some budget to have some proper fitted storage, because that always utilises more space than freestanding storage. And really thinking about what it is you need to store and making sure the storage is appropriate. So, for example, I've got a real problem with things like blanket boxes or toy boxes, because everything goes in and nothing's coming out of that.
And then also it's really difficult to prop the lid room. I'd also like a virtual show of hands, people, anyone who's moved house. How many of us have got, 4 or 5 boxes that came from the last house that we don't want to throw away? We haven't unpacked them.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to keep them still packed when we take them to the next house.
That's the stuff that
So
lives in the loft, isn't it?
Yeah. You've got to find a space for that, because then when you convert your loft, where are you going to put that? A cupboard under the stairs. But I want to make that into a downstairs loo. I mean, we ain't Marie Kondo. I love stuff, but you do have to think about
I think it's a really fundamental part of this planning process then. If you're moving house, or indeed if you're just rejigging or redecorating an existing room in an existing home, this is the time to reevaluate how you use the space. You can go back to our last episode for the what, where, when, what, will, all the W's.
It's a question. W's. We've had P's, we've had air, we've had W's.
Yeah.
Who, what, when, where, why, and how.
So you can go back to that, but and then reassess: how do I use the space? Am I using it efficiently? And do I need all this stuff? And if I do, how am I going to store it? Systems. I'll have a system in place for it all.
The other thing I would say about creating the illusion of space, and I don't know if this fits into this episode, but I've just thought about it, so I'm going to say it now, is it's about having furniture, giving furniture the space to breathe. Now, obviously, we're sitting in my big green sitting room. It's massive. I can have the sofas in the middle of the room. But in a smaller space, in my London house, what I've done is I've just pulled my sofa forward in front of the window by 10 centimetres.
Rather than pushing it up against the wall?
Rather than pushing it up against the wall. So the curtains drop easily behind and flow easily behind. If you can have 10 centimetres at the end of the sofa between that and the wall, it just gives that bit of breathing space, that there's enough room. So it's about pulling things in a tiny bit, not so you lose space, but just so that you feel that breathing. It's not all crammed in.
That is a good tip. I did the opposite I switched the tiny kitchen and the big living room around. I should probably finish that story. I left everybody on a bit of a cliffhanger there, didn't I?
That's where we got to.
Rather than doing the extension, ultimately we binned the extension and we put the kitchen in what was the living room, and the big living room ended up in the small kitchen space, effectively creating a very cosy little TV snug, which works for the way we live because we only watch TV in the evening, and then creating this big kitchen dining space that then spills out onto the garden, which is where we do most of our entertaining. So win-win. But my sofa in the TV snug, I decided to have made to measure, pushed right up against the wall and into the corner, but almost working like a fitted sofa, so it wrapped the whole
Again, the function of the room, that allows that, because it's a TV room. So the function of that room is to have as much space to lie down, to spread out.
And get as many people in there too.
And get as many people. So, in that function, that works, pushing the furniture up. If, for the sake of argument, you had decided to keep that room pale and have a couple of small, what I'm going to call chatting sofas.
Yes.
Because people, perhaps, the children were watching TV somewhere else and the grown-ups were going in there for a little martini and a chat, then you might want to bring the furniture a little bit further in so that it feels more like an intimate, cozy chatting space.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is all about staring at the telly, that room.
Yeah.
You sit down and it's just, it is a TV room.
So I think we've given people permission to move their rooms around. The one other thing I want to talk about, this my pet subject, before we leave this function of rooms, is again to do with space. And that's, you've got your rooms in the right place. And to do with flow, you want to look at your doors. And I know that you do.
Why do I want to look at my doors?
I'm obsessed with the doors because, again, in small houses, doors that open, no good having a door that doesn't. Doors that open traditionally, I'm going to go with a traditional door at hinge, open that door and take up a lot of space in the room. So traditionally in a Victorian house, they opened, as it were, into the room so that the people in the room might be shielded from the person coming.
So they get a little warning. So
they get a little warning. But that takes up space and might sort of bash into the sofa now. So a lot of people might reverse the hinges so that it opens against the wall side so that you open the door and see the room. If it opens outwards and you've got narrow passages, so in our London house again, the way that we had my son's bedroom is at the end of a sort of landing and the bathroom was in front of that. And when the bathroom door opened outwards onto the landing, he was effectively trapped into his bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big lad of 24. He can get past a blocking door. But, the point is it wasn't helping the flow. So the first thing we planned when we were redoing that house is that bathroom door has got to become a sliding door, a pocket door. And then we're not taking up space in what is a very small bathroom. We're not blocking the landing. That door just slides in and out and disappears. And in our previous house, so we had a sliding door. We were making an ensuite. We converted a bedroom into an ensuite bathroom. And again, with a traditional standard size door, if it had opened out into the bedroom, it would have blocked my husband's wardrobe. Again, it's not the end of the world, but if it feels
awkward, and it makes a small space feel smaller.
Exactly. If we don't do it the other way into the bathroom, then it was kind of blocking the mirror and it was in the way. And could we have a towel rail on that wall where we wanted one? So what we did was we took that traditional door and we cut it in half and we fixed it at the two sides and we created effectively a mini double door. So it was the same size as a door, but we had two half doors.
Right, like
salute doors at full length.
Yeah.
That's the point. So we didn't take up any more space in the wall. We effectively used the same door. But what that meant was when those two half doors were open, they didn't take up very much space. So that was that. And then
you don't see that very often either, do you?
No, probably because I think people think if they've got double doors, they must be bigger. And obviously, if you've got the space, great. Not out. The other thing we did on a different floor was that bathroom door opened outwards to a sort of awkward landing at the top of the stairs. And because I am, you may have noticed, somewhat of a catastrophist, I had visions of young child, then aged 7, slamming out of the bathroom and flinging open the door, and other child aged 5 coming up the stairs and
being knocked back down again.
And that was the end of that. And we didn't have room in that space for 2 doors. So we cut the door in half and then we fitted hinges down the middle. So it became still a single door, the Tina door that folded.
Oh.
So that folded back on itself. Again, took up very little space when open and closed really well. Now, I will say as a caveat, wasn't the most soundproof of rooms, but, it wasn't a guest bathroom. We were all friends. We were family. It was fine. So that's another consideration. But I am really imploring you, look at your doors. Can you save space by creating a sliding door, a folding door, a mini set of double doors? And that, I think, really helps in tight spaces.
Oh, you are so into the doors.
I'm into the doors. And they're endless, my sermon on doors.
Well, I feel like I want to validate myself by saying I changed a couple of doors in my house to sliding doors for that reason.
Yeah.
One was on the very small utility room. Because again, when you opened it, you couldn't have any cupboards.
Well, if you open the door, you can't get to the end of the room.
Exactly. Yeah. And another one was the little tiny shower room, which again seems to be the same problem as you. When you pull the door open, you block the hallway. Yeah. But again, people just do it. They just think, it's a door, stick it on hinges and be done with it. Sliding doors are brilliant. I couldn't change the architecture to do a pocket door. A pocket door is when the door disappears inside.
It goes inside the wall. It's more expensive, like a pocket, but it's more soundproof.
Yeah, I've got a door that's on a sort of slider.
That's a barn door. A barn door slider. I've had that, again, less soundproof, slightly less private, but perfectly good and functional. A pocket door is if you need soundproofing, and you want something that's kind of sleeker and more modern. And the other thing, I mean, we're going to get into colour, obviously. I'm here with Sophie. There's never going to be a minute without it. But you can have fun with a pocket door, actually, because you can paint that door a different colour. And then it's like when the door is closed, there's a lovely picture. And when it's, slid away, you don't see it.
Oh,
so there we go. So we have done doors. We have done room planning. What do we do next?
Well, I'm just thinking, should we get into the layout? So you've decided where your room's going to be.
Yeah.
You've sorted your doors out, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, I'm all about before you pick up the paintbrush, because I'm aware that most people want to do that. I think you need to start your electrical lighting plan.
But you've got to do your floor plan first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really good point. So again, what happens, especially with trades, they will just bulldozer you and they'll be like, you want a socket here, socket there, and a grid of downlighters, job done. Next, you really need to slow down and do your floor plan. Where is your sofa going? Where is your bed going? Where is your desk going? Where is your kitchen island going?
And what I would say for most of us is, there aren't 36 places where the sofa and the bed can go.
There's actually probably only one.
There's probably only one. There might be two. So take a moment to think about that. Obviously, kitchens can be different if you're ripping it out and starting from scratch. That's a bigger floor plan. But, don't agonise about your sitting room, because you're probably not going to move the telly sockets. You're sort of slightly dictated.
Again, though, I've just helped my dad, who recently moved to France, do a floor plan for his open plan living room, dining room. And when I see the estate agent photographer who had the previous owner had the layout, it was absolutely bonkers from my point of view. Again, furniture pushed up to go against the wall. It's a big open plan space, but everything pushed to the edges. So much space wasted. Just awful layout. And they were really scratching their heads because they were looking at the estate agent pictures going, well, we don't like it, but we don't know what else to do because they can't visualize it. And actually, the thing is with open plan spaces, especially once you take everything out, they look massive. And what people usually find is when you start planning where your sofas and your coffee tables and they're actually not very big at all. Because the reason why they've been knocked through and made to be open plan was probably because they were quite small, pokey rooms.
Yeah.
And you need to allow what I would call your thoroughfare space. So you need to be able to walk from the doorway through the areas, and you don't want to be tripping.
Meters nice, 90 will do.
Yeah, but it can take up quite a lot of space. But I would start with that in your open plan space, or even indeed any living room, keeping that 90 centimetre pathway.
And another thing
around the furniture
people don't think about. 90. So a standard British door is around 76 centimetres, I think, isn't it? So that just helps you visualise, what does 90 centimetres look like? That will allow two people to pass if they want to sort of shimmy past each other. A metre is generous. But the other thing to consider is, yes, big open plan spaces, put the furniture across the middle as a break to zone it. But also think about, again, where your, not doors, your entrance and exits are. Because I see sofas next to coffee tables. And then if someone wants to leave the room, they're walking between the sofa and the coffee table, like at the cinema, and everybody's sort of moving their legs to get to the door. Well, have you got enough space to bring the whole lot forward a bit so that people can walk behind the sofa?
Yeah.
In a big space to get to where they want to go. So this floor plan layout is really key.
And I think the other common mistake people make when they're looking at an empty room is thinking that they can get more or bigger items in than they actually can. So what we did to help my dad with his layout, because he was looking at buying these huge sofas because he just saw this huge empty room. And actually when we got the tape measure and the masking tape out and said, okay, well, this sofa is 2.5 centimetres by a metre deep, which is fairly standard.
2.5 centimetres?
Sorry, it was 2 metres 20 by a metre deep, which is a standard sort of three-seater sofa size,
isn't it?
We realised that we couldn't get two of those in there, and he needed a 3-seater and then quite a modest squeezy 2-seater, because 2 3-seaters you weren't going to be able to get between them. But it wasn't until we marked it out on the floor with masking tape, and then to help visualise, we got all his packing boxes because they've just moved from the garage, made them back out into boxes and put them in the gaps. And suddenly he was like, oh, this room's filled up a lot and I don't know whether I like it now. I liked it when it was the space, and you realise how a chunky sofa can suddenly gobble up.
And also that idea that, you might want big squishy sofas, but you need to be able to have a conversation. Big sofas that are far apart means you're shouting at the person opposite you. So you want them to be close enough to have a conversation and to maybe put a coffee table in the middle. And it's the same with dining tables. You know, ideally, you don't want a dining table that's a metre wide, or if you do, you're probably not talking comfortably to the person opposite you at dinner. So, 80, 90 centimetres is good to talk to someone sitting opposite you. More than that, you're probably going to talk to the people either side of you or across the corner. Square tables are a different thing.
That's why I like an oval better than a round.
They're really hard to find good oval tables.
They are quite hard.
I mean, they're great. Oval tables are often the solution. So, look on vintage sites, because if you can find one, and I'm thinking...
Or you can sometimes, get a top made and put some legs on it. I've done that in the past.
That's a whole different furniture.
But so we're getting our furniture in position just on coffee tables. I've got a bugbear with oversized coffee tables. Don't necessarily, they can really gobble up a lot of space. Sometimes a small footstool and a couple of side tables to put your coffee or your glasses.
Why not? You can group.
Can be nice. The big lump in the middle of
Are you looking at my big lump behind you? I love my big lump.
Well, you've got the space for it, darling.
Yes.
I mean, that is as big as a child's. Your coffee table is as big as a child's single bed.
Well, I think my coffee table, actually, I suspect, was an old kitchen refectory table. And I suspect at some point the legs were cut off to make it lower. I like that because, and I've had this table for years in all my houses, because I can have a pile of books and a vase and the pretty bit at one end. I can have my feet on the other end. I can have my dinner. The kids used to sit on it sometimes to watch the telly. So again, think about your function. Who uses your coffee table and what do they want to do on it? Is it purely beautiful decorative space, or is it very, very functional?
See, I like
a mix of the two.
I like a footstool because when I've got loads of people around, we can also push it in the corner and
it's an extra seat. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's what are you doing in there? Whose space is it?
So we've got our furniture. So you worked out where your bed's going in your bedroom. You've worked out where your sofas are going in the living room. We've worked out where your dining table's probably not got much choice on that.
Yeah.
If you're renovating, you've got the opportunity to move light fixtures and sockets, which sounds so obvious, but so many people don't plan this in and then live a life of repentance.
Quite extreme, but yes, they might be sort of mildly irritated from time to time. Yes.
I feel for those of you who are in a position where you can hack the plaster off and rerun things, because it's expensive to do. I think we should highlight moving sockets and light fittings is expensive. So you only want to do it once.
There's usually a sort of, most builders will give you a cost of whatever it is, X per socket.
Yeah.
So that if you can start with your fantasy of all the, I want to move 36 sockets in this room, and then you look at the budget and have a small cry, and then you go, well, actually, can we get away with only moving 24? And you can instantly slash your cost.
Yeah, I did that. I did a lot in the kitchen because I think lighting and sockets is particularly important there. And then I did have to compromise in the bedroom. I wanted to move the lights, and I was just like, oh, okay, no, they're in the wrong place. But actually, it doesn't really matter because I've got my bedside lamps.
Well, yeah, bedside lamps is key. And the other thing is, in this house, which is 3 floors, there was a lot of sockets. We were very budget driven. So for the driven. So for the most part, we just tried to rewire them because the whole house needed rewiring. So it was about, let's keep that in the same place. Roughly, I've done a furniture plan, a floor plan. I know where things are going. So there were a couple of places where we moved them where the beds weren't going to be in the right place, or there wasn't a socket either side of the bed. And then there was a whole load of hoo-ha because Italian beds are a different size from British beds. So we needed to know what size beds we were going to have so that we could position the sockets, correctly for either side of the bed. And, inevitably, there are things you miss. This is the other thing. There will be things you miss, but there are now, happily, I think, ways around it. So in this particular room that we're sitting in, which is very big, this was always the room we got to last. We learnt as the renovation went on that if we were coming to have site meetings with plumbers and electricians and so on, we learnt to start here so that we weren't exhausted because, we planned the sockets in this room. We were like, yeah, just replace what it is. That's
light
fine.
for light.
Light for light. We know where the telly's going to go because there's a lot of windows in this room. So that's the telly behind me there, and that's how it's going to work. And then we realised when it was all done that there's a corner that you can't see. Actually, you can see on behind Sophie, there's a fireplace in the corner. And in that corner there's no socket.
Right.
And that is a very dark corner in the room.
Oh.
And if we needed an extension cable to run across, A, we'd have to have a cable running diagonally across the room.
Can't do that.
And B, it would have to be 10 metres. You can't even buy those unless they're garden ones. But so we were a bit like, oh, well, there you go. We all make mistakes. Dark corner, that'll be sexy. But it is a bit too dark. So saved by the rechargeable battery lamp.
Ooh.
And those are now and they're really good. If you're not redoing your lighting in your kitchen, but you want a lamp on a worktop and you haven't got a socket, what we've done there is we've got a floor battery rechargeable lamp. It actually lasts for about 8 hours. We never need it on for 8 hours, but, we'll charge it up. We might come up here for an hour in the evening, watch telly, put it on for an hour, turn it off and go. And that's that corner solved. And those lights are improving all the time.
Yeah.
There used to be a bit of that harsh kind of blue garden light. Now you can get soft lights. You can get really nice frames and shapes. And
usually they have multiple settings on how bright you want it to be.
So those so don't despair if you've either got it wrong or you've run out of budget. That's a great help.
There are, yeah. I mean, after all my 101 sockets that I had put in the kitchen, because I got socket anxiety, I still didn't put them in the right place where I want them. They're so annoying. So on the worktop, I was like, well, let's just have a bank of a double socket there, a double socket there, and a double socket there.
And you think you've done it.
And I think I've done it. Like, why would you need more than 6 sockets on a worktop? But actually, then when I came to put the stuff in my new big kitchen with its massive worktops, I was able to have a coffee making machine. So I got a coffee making machine and a coffee bean grinder and a milk frother. That's 3 sockets, Kate.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. So what happens is
you've got an adapter.
No, I haven't. I just have to keep pushing one out because I need the coffee grinder every now and then I have to. And why does this irritate me? It shouldn't, should I? It's not a hardship pulling a socket out and putting one in, but it bugs me.
Because you had the opportunity to plan it. And this is, I think, where it comes down to, take the time. Kitchens are difficult to cover all eventualities, but do take the time to think about, what you're doing in your kitchen. So are you someone who really loves decent coffee? And in which case, you're going to need sockets for all the gadgets you like. Are you someone who really loves cooking? So you're going to need to factor in the prep space and maybe the blender or the cake maker, or, you can spot the woman who doesn't know what the gadgets are. I use a stovetop pot for my coffee, so I don't need that. But, think about what you're doing and what you might need to plug in. It's a little bit of visualization, and not in a kind of woo-woo visualization, but Sophie will absolutely take you down that road if you want to go. But a little bit like, okay, I'm coming into my new kitchen and I'm going to make my cup of coffee there. So where's my fridge need to be to get the butter out because I need to put my toaster in it. Just think about all those things you do. And that as well is furniture layout, but it's also what you're doing and thinking about where you might need, if not lighting, electricity. That, I think, has covered our room planning. And so the only other thing I would say in terms of where we're starting is, and we've covered this a bit in electrics, do start with the sort of architectural features first and work in, because rewiring after the fact is annoying. Do your floor, what do you want on your floor? Do you want tiles? Do you want parquet? Are you sanding your floor? Are you going to have new carpet? Because redoing those things afterwards is annoying. So it's lighting. It's start with the floor, work up one in, get all that done in terms of, the big jobs, radiators. You've got to plan your radiators really early because you don't want to take the floor up. So, think about those. So you need to do a floor plan. You're not going to move the furniture in for quite a long time.
Yes.
But,
I think you're right. I think a lot of people think a floor plan when it comes to actually ordering the sofa and putting it in. But what we're saying is your floor plan absolutely has to begin before you've picked your flooring, before you picked your wall colour, before you've decided whether you're doing wallpaper, what your colour scheme is, before you've mood boarded.
Yeah.
Because these things are so costly and expensive to change later.
And they're just annoying. I mean, in our last house, we had painted floorboards and they lasted really well. And every now and then we had white painted floorboards. It was the early 2000s. It was very fashionable. And they lasted really well. And we didn't mind them being a bit scuffed. But once every couple of years, we would repaint the hall. And it was really easy to repaint the hall. It was high traffic. There was no furniture in it. There was one point where we had...
What do you mean it was easy to paint the hall? It was high traffic. That's a...
It was high traffic areas, so a lot of people were coming in and out.
Yes.
But there was no furniture in it, so it was easy to repaint.
Oh, because would you just do that at night when everyone's going to bed?
Let's just repaint the floor, that's easy. We had a conversation once about whether we didn't want a white painted floor anymore. We were redoing the library, and did we want to paint the floor actually darker? And then it was like, we've got to move. Where are we going to put the chairs? Where are we going to put the rugs? Where are we going to put the books? We have to and it was like, do you know what? We won't do that. So
do you know, I like what the Victorians did. And if you buy an old Victorian house, you quite often see it, where they would have a massive rug or carpet in the centre of the room, and it would just leave like 1.5 foot around the edges, and that was the only bit that got varnished or painted.
We did
so
that.
You could just paint the edges of your room, get a huge rug, and then when you come to repaint it, just move everything in the centre.
We totally did that in my son's bedroom because we'd just run out of time and energy, and we'd got this big rug, and we were like, do you know what? We'll just paint 1.5 foot around the edge and put the rug over the top. And then when we sold the house and picked the rug up, the new owners were like, oh, thanks for that. Sorry, caveat emptor. But yes, that's very good. And you often see that if you're moving into an old house and ripping up the carpets with a view to sanding, you'll see that the floor might be dark around the edges and then pale in the middle for that reason.
Yeah, that reason. Interesting.
Lots to think about. So I think we've pretty much... Yeah, we're there for this. That's enough information.
I think so. So just to recap, you're going back to your W's, episode 1. How are you using your room? And then you're going to do your layout accordingly. You're going to have lights that are going to highlight the area that you're going to be reading your book or chopping your vegetables.
Yes.
Or charging your phone. So we're
You're
going to get our electric
flow. Are the rooms in the right place? The flow of the rooms.
Have you got room to move around your furniture so you don't end up ordering furniture that's too big? And just touching on lighting again, I know we talked about this in the first episode, but it doesn't have to be the default grid of lighting. Think about what you want to highlight in the room as to your layout. So you might want to highlight your coffee table with a light, or the centre of your dining table, for example. All of that good stuff. So with that in mind, Kate, what are we talking about next week?
Well, she's jumped up and down on the script. She's such a rebel. We'll get to that in a minute. We've talked about everything we want to talk about. So next week, we're going to talk about the money.
Oh, we're going to talk about the money.
We're going to talk about where to spend, where to save, and how to get the look for less.
Oh,
so that's, it's existing money, not scary money.
I'm pumped for that. So we do hope you've enjoyed this episode. And well, if you'd like to carry on the chat about this week's topic, or indeed anything else, do come and join us over on Substack. Where I'm Sophie Robinson Interiors, and she's, you're Kate Watson-Smythe.
I am. That's just my name. So Substack is now our sort of new favourite space where we love to share everything that we like about interiors. And we're saying, come on over. It's new. Have a look. You can have an app. You can look at it on the web. It's all fine. And I've been over there for about 18 months now. And I've written everything from how to choose the right shade of white paint, for which I interviewed Joe Studholme with Farrow and Ball. So, I've got some expert views on there as well. And also we're back to the P's, why the pursuit of perfectionism is ruining your interior design. Oh, well, you'll find that over there, along with my monthly live drop-in design clinic. And you'll also find the entire back catalogue of my blog, Mad About the House, over there.
All over there too. So I'm super new to Substack, but I do love it really as a place for updating people on the latest news, trends, design inspiration. If, however, you're looking to deepen your interior design knowledge, or you want your hand held through this very complex and precarious renovation process, do check out my online interior design school, which you can find at courses.sophierobinson.co.uk, because this is where I have broken down my design process into really easy to follow lessons, lots of lovely videos, PowerPoint presentations, lots of pretty pictures, which will, quite frankly, completely transform the way you decorate and give you oodles of confidence with colour.
There you go. And so that's all from us for now, but do come back next week, as I say, where we're going to get into the money. And a huge thank you to all of you for listening.
And, we'll see you in the great indoors.
Numbers are going up.